Hey everybody, it's Accessory here, Lance's Performance Shop, Lone Star Mopars.com. Monday night about 8 p.m. Got stuck at work, unfortunately. Truck that was supposed to show up tomorrow morning showed up tonight, so sometimes stuff happens. I went ahead and decided I'd just unload the guy and not have to deal with it tomorrow. So late start, but hopefully we can get some progress made here tonight. Now, as I've come out here and kind of studied what we're dealing with, I'm inclined to say we might be able to get this front bracket off with just 14mm bolts, but I'm not 100% ready to commit to it, but we're going to find out. So what I'm seeing, we've got bolt 1 down here. Again, this will be your passenger side, sort of right below where your alternator would have been, between the water pump and idler. That'll be our first bolt. We've got one here. It's clearly running back through the accessory bracket into the head, so I feel confident there. Coming this way, we have this one, also 14mm. Now, you can't see it too great, but there's a steel bracket here that goes to our water pump outlet. That'll, of course, run back to a heater hose, which you can see where my finger is. It snakes to a clamp, goes back along the firewall and into the truck. So we're going to want to free that up. That should be held in with just an O-ring. We may very well go ahead and pull that out. Kind of the goal, aside from getting this front accessory bracket off of here tonight, is to at least get rid of that, have access to this bypass hose, have real good access to the thermostat housing. We can get this radiator hose out of here. It's like having a dragon in your engine bay at this point in time, so it'll just be advantageous to not have to deal with it. But that would be bolt 3. Bolt, now I'm not 100% here, but I'm pretty sure I'm looking at the same thing. So we drop down a bit below that tube. We're going to have what I think would be bolt 4 and bolt 5. The power steering bracket, which is actually kind of a trick looking piece. See how it's got sort of the fins in there, right? I can appreciate that design. I'm pretty sure it's going to be that bolt there. There's a ground lug here we may have to deal with at some point in time. But essentially what I'm going to start doing is just winging these 4 or 5 bolts and see if we get the front accessory cover off. Everything I've checked has been 14mm, and I'm going to try to do it from outside of the engine bay, because inevitably every time I get in there I have to run back out to grab something. So I'm just going to try to alleviate that, and I'm sure this time I won't need anything. That's just how things go. But hopefully that allows us to get that off. If it does, it won't be another huge progress point, but it's another step in the right direction. We'll see how much time we have tonight and proceed accordingly. Alright, trying something with the camera at the utmost limits of the tripod there, but I've been just breaking everything free with a little 3/8 style Villa ratchet. A thought occurred to me, hey, it's kind of overkill, but why don't we have some fun here in the engine bay? So this is the Gedore 1993 TU10. It's the extendable one, the one that I told you has a lockout right there, where we can have it essentially serve as a breaker bar, right? So we're going to go ahead and do that, because again, if you got it, make use of it, right? Alright, can't see her too. I guess you can. Yeah, that's a little bit easier, and then of course we can ratchet with it too if we want to, but let's go ahead and break this one free as well. Once again, you can sort of see it on the perimeter there. I'm just going to come in, apply minimal pressure, and go to town. Now, in order to break it all the way, we can ratchet, which is super easy to do with a flip of a switch, really. And certainly beats using the breaker bar. But again, like I said, I buy these things for a reason, and this is a bit overkill for it, but hey, we can go to town. Again, we can even slide her back in. Just having something roughly like that. The amazing magic of my palm, right? But like I said, I try to use this stuff sometimes. You can get by with something a little simpler, but it makes things a little bit more fun for me. So that's what I do. That's what I enjoy. Who knows, maybe we'll get to bust out the cool-offs here in a little bit, but for what it's worth, this thing worked exactly like I wanted it to. Center selection on the switch. We actually have it locked out, works just like a breaker bar, and then as soon as you break her free, flip the switch, ratchet it off. Awesome tool. Alright, so quick little update for you. I had some fun busting out the big guns for this one, even though it's not necessary at all. You know, it's something fun, right? So, long bolt right here that you're going to see. This is a sucker. It's going to be your top bolt. Again, going to run through this accessory bracket all the way into the head. Coming down, this is just a average size bolt. Matches up with these two. I figured the one that held this bracket in place would have actually been shorter. It was not. It's the same length as that one. I'm gonna have to come in, stupid radiator hose, bust this clip off right here, heater hose essentially. We're gonna pull that so I can maybe get some pliers on this tube and break the O-ring seal, because that bolt, you can't really tell from here, but trust me, the angle of attack is just not there even with a wobble. So we kind of need to get it out of the way, that way we can have access to it. I pulled around on this thing. It seemed to be in there pretty good. I'm wondering if maybe there's some bolts I'm not seeing. I'm thinking, no? I don't know. I'll see. I mean, it's never been off, so maybe it's just got some suction behind her. But once we get this sucker off, again, constant tension clamp, you know the drill, pliers on it, slide it up, and then we'll simply try to pull this out. Again, should be just an O-ring holding that in place. Then we'll be able to better assess the front accessory bracket. Alright, so a little update for you. Having a heck of a time getting that tube out, so we may just try to snake a wrench in, see if we can free that bolt, spin it out by hand. Once you get them started, they're really not that tight, is the good news. But coming in right here, I was determined. I thought, man, you know, this is way too tight for one bolt. There's got to be something hidden that we're not seeing. Sure enough, behind that pulley, which that's why we've got this set up, there is a bolt that would be holding the accessory bracket as well, kind of centrally located. So we're going to need to break this pulley off conveniently. It's also 14 millimeter. This is way overkill. I was just making a little fun video for Casey Tool. But we're going to go ahead, crack that off, and then I will show you the hidden bolt. Alright, you notice anything different? Hopefully you do, because that port right there is where we pulled this pulley from. So essentially you're going to have to imagine that. And if you look right below there where you had no idea it existed, you've got another 14 millimeter bolt. It would be kind of our center point. So in all, I'm guessing we've got 2 bolts here. Then we would have this one and the 2 on the end, right? Pretty much it. Seems about right. So we've also got the one with the tube, but I'm going to break that free, see if that keeps it attached only on that side. Probably leave this in a couple of threads as we try to break that free with a wrench. Alright, so perched up here in the engine bay once again, and I tell you, I was to the point I was about ready to just remove the water pump to get that tube off so we could have access to what I believe will be the final bolt for this front accessory bracket. But knowing that the water pump is trash, we're going to replace it. I was going to replace the tube anyway, you know, just new type of a thing. It was in great shape for what it's worth. It's, essentially, you can see the tab there that would bolt up to the accessory bracket, kind of hold it in place. And what I did, I just came in with those alligators from Knipex, started gnawing on it, literally just turning it, kind of ratchet back and turn it a little bit more. Probably 3 or 4 cycles of that, flipped the bracket almost 180 degrees, and when it got to that point, you can kind of wiggle it like this, and I assume if we keep going, we can break her free. So it's not in terrible shape after that, but it's something again. These are cheap, they're simple to reuse, or replace I should say, and that's the route we're going to go. But again, it'll sit like that. There should be an O-ring that holds it in place. That sucker was in there, I will say that. But what I want to showcase now, I'm hoping you can see it, right there, that one bolt that's still in place. Think that'll be our final one. I'm going to break that sucker free, see if we can get this accessory bracket off again. If you're in that same boat, make sure you get all your bolts, the pulleys, tools, anything you sat down, because it could fall depending on if you catch it or not. But let's see, another thing I wanted to note, the upper radiator hose, I think we've covered this, but since we're about to pull it, it's important to note, it's got a series of 3 cables. Looks like maybe, I'm not exactly sure what they all are, probably, you know, throttle control, transmission control, something along those lines. But these 3 are bundled inside. In fact, if we just lift this up, this one's going to come in right here. Looks like a throttle cable to me. I haven't gone through and figured it all out. This one's going to tuck in right beside it. The third one comes over here and kind of goes into a T connection where it's real dusty. That's just a vacuum line. And then coming out, this one that feeds into the braided line runs all the way over there. This one is going to run back right beside the master cylinder and disappear, and then this third one enters in this braid, so it must also go over there. On the heater hose that we removed, I slid the clamp all the way back here, and that's because there is another catch. This little plastic clip holds this braided loom that then comes up here to the radiator, upper radiator hose with these two in it. And there is another one which I want to showcase right back there. There's a clip off the valve cover for the heater hose. It's currently out of it, I guess, from when we pulled, but essentially it would tuck in there. So that looks like all the clips we need to make note of, at least on this side. Again, this one that kind of ran from the alternator stud back to the manifold just has a little clip we'll push through. It was holding the alternator charge wire. It's got the B and the Chrysler logo, and then of course it runs off over to the battery area. So hopefully that kind of walks you through everything there. Again, I've got that bolt. I did leave the center one threaded about halfway in, that way, you know, we can kind of catch things, prevent tragedy. So I will work towards that. I'll see if there's anything else we missed, and we'll see where we're at. Okay, I do believe that will be it. Something I want to note though, the bolt that I just took out, the one that was concealed by the bypass tube right there, right? It's going to be this one. It was actually a little bit longer than the other two. Again, I don't have anything here to kind of measure it, keep tabs on it right off the bat, but case in point, I should be able to grab this, and once we take this one out all the way, which of course now it's gummed up on me, but once I get a ratchet and we turn that another couple of turns, I should be able to just lift this entire accessory bracket off. And that was the goal. That'll open things up for us, so let me get that off. We'll take a look at what we got. Alright, so not too bad. As you can see, something important I want to note, I've gone ahead and put the hardware back into the bracket. Even kind of threaded this pulley back on. Anytime you can do that, it will simplify your life, keep things easy, and give you less of a chance of screwing something up. Particularly since so many of the bolts are the same and just slight variances in length. You know, if it was like, if this was all 3/8 and everything else was 5/16, it kind of foolproofs it. But when you've got everything almost exclusively as a 14mm, it's nice when you take it apart and put it on, but if you're questioning if something's in the right spot and everything is a 14mm crevice, you open yourself up to some potential issues. Now coming in, this has done a couple of things for us that we wanted to accomplish. Right here we can finally have good access to this clamp. We can get the upper radiator hose / dragon out of the way. Similarly, we've got full access to the bypass hose there. Again, that's going to come off of the water pump here with a constant tension and to the manifold there. It looks like it was gummed up pretty good down in there. I'm thinking that's from the water pump, in all honesty, just kind of flinging things while it was failing. And I say that because it actually looks really good and it's dry around the thermostat housing. Similarly, this is not busted, and there's only dirt on my finger. There's no moisture, so that's a good sign. Could also possibly have been compressor oil from the AC compressor. Again, we'll try to figure it out. In fact, yeah, I think that's compressor oil. Actually, this, I would be shocked if that was some type of antifreeze. It smells like oil. It feels like oil. I'm going to say it must be oil. So I think the compressor might have been leaking just a little bit. Nothing crazy, but you can kind of see residue there. It's either that or just the water pump was flinging stuff up and maybe it was kind of pulling fluids out. Who knows? But bottom line, we're going to get it all figured out. But what I'm going to do off camera, alligator pliers, we're going to remove the two. I guess we really don't. Yeah, we need to. I think in order to lift the engine, I want the manifold off, and so therefore it makes sense to just go ahead and get rid of that bypass hose. Of course, just getting this out is going to free up space and headache. And we'll probably leave the thermostat housing. I don't see a reason in taking that off right now. We also open up this line right here. You can see that side of the clamp, and that, I believe, is going to be our other heater hose. if I'm not mistaken. We'll kind of clean it up. Once I get this off the intake, we'll see a little better, but that's where we stand. That's what I'm going to do, and we'll see how we come out. All right, so fair warning, you're probably in the same or worse shape than me, and that means you're going to need to pick to get the hoses off. So realistically, I might just go ahead and spin off the thermostat housing, because I think then it would be much easier to get the upper radiator hose off. And, I'll just ultimately play around and see what I want to do, but I've already started picking at the bypass hose there. It's just about ready to come off, at least that side. I'm optimistic then I can pull it off of the manifold. And like I said, if we don't have much luck picking that upper radiator hose off, I'll probably just go ahead and spin the thermostat housing off. I say that also, I'm not sure if I just did that when I was just pulling up on the hose with all my strength or not, but as much as you can apply sitting on a upper radiator support with your feet dangled across the frame rail, looking with your head right up against the hood, but nonetheless you can kind of see where that was leaking, and then there is some crud back there, but it looks ancient. It's not wet, it's definitely dry, but that does kind of look like antifreeze does when it clumps up with grease, you know. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead, get all this out and see how it goes. Not sure if you can hear that, but that's a sweet sound. At least I hear is rain on the roof. It's been a couple days. It's now Friday evening, fitting timing with the rain. But went ahead. I have gotten the coolant bypass hose off. You can kind of see it there tucked up against the intake. And the complete pain in the butt it was to remove the upper radiator hose is done. Again, I just use hose picks. Typically having my best luck with the 90-degree one. It kind of allows me to, you know, pick and pry the best. You can see it, the Dragon is no longer in the engine bay. We've got it out of our way. I'm trying to decide if there's anything else I want to do in this video, or if I want to just move into the next one. You can also see, possibly, that I've cleaned a little bit. It's always kind of hard to tell, but I do try. And then I've started labeling some of our connections. That's going to be real important moving forward, just for your convenience, whatever you want to call it, however you want to label it. Numbers, alphabet, alphanumeric, exact descriptions, general locations. As long as it works for you, you are doing just fine. And in fact, I'm kind of at a point, I'm trying to decide if I want to mess with the exhaust manifolds, the Y pipe, or simply stay in the engine bay and do the intake manifold. I'm kind of thinking about just doing the intake manifold, but we shall see. Nonetheless, we may just wrap this one up here, I guess. But again, if I'm remembering correctly, we got the front accessory bracket off in this one. We also got a couple of odds and ends out of our way. And since most of these connections do tend to be on or related to the intake, I think this will be a decent stopping point for us. Just to kind of showcase once more, that is what we took off, our front accessory bracket. You can see the alternator there, of course the condenser still tucked away inside. But on that note, hopefully this helps you out. Hopefully you're still enjoying learning or refreshing your mind on some things, who knows. But we will start anew, and I hope that I see you there for that. So LoneStarMopars.com is the website. Again, if you want to follow along on your choice of social media, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, all three at Lone Star Mopars.